Hello, geekologists! This is Systematic Geekology. We are the Priest of the Geeks. I am one of your hosts, Kevin Schaefer, joined here with X-Men aficionado Andy Walsh. Andy, how are you today?
I'm doing very well, thanks. How are you?
Doing well. I'm excited to be here. This is another episode of Comic Book Ketchup where we just talk about all the comics we've been reading lately. So, very excited for this one, and I think we've got some good picks for you all tonight. So, yeah. So first off, thank you everyone who's tuning in right now, and especially those who are supporting on Patreon. We really appreciate it. If you want to support us on Patreon, it's super easy to do so. You just go on, we have a link there. I think it'll be in the description. And then you can also like, subscribe, rate, and review wherever you get your podcasts. Comic Book Catch Up is YouTube exclusive. But we have a lot of other content here on YouTube and then here on our other platforms. So wherever you get your podcast, Spotify, Apple, I forget some of the others. I don't know. There's so many. But give it wherever you're listening or watching. Please like, subscribe, rate and review. It really helps us. So we appreciate you all, and a big shout out to all of our Patreon subscribers. So thank you all. Well, Andy, before we get to our main books tonight, let's do, as always, a lightning round where we can pick some of the other comics or comic adjacent material that we've been catching up on. So, Andy, what are some of your? There it is. I got to do that sound effect. Always great, but yeah. So, Andy, what are some of your lightning round picks?
Sure. Yeah, so first of all, I have the latest issue of Storm up there, mostly because I just like the cover of Storm riding a hippo. What's not to love about that? Sadly, not a prominent element of the story contained therein, but still a fun image.
They gotta hook you with that cover, right?
Yeah, exactly. Uh, and still digging Gwenpool. I was a big fan of the original Gwenpool run, and so I've been curious what she's been up to, or where her next direction is going. I was a little disappointed they went to the trouble of making her a mutant, using her fourth wall breaking powers to turn herself into a mutant so that her book wouldn't get canceled, or so that she'd be able to show up in the background, the scenes of X-Men events and so forth. And then very little came of that. So I was curious to see where they're going next, and it has surprised me with every issue. This latest miniseries, so that's been fun to follow along with. And then I've been continuing to look through, revisit my childhood. Essentially, you check out the GI Joe and Transformers comics and the Void Rivals. I think I mentioned the GI Joe books previously, and I said that Duke was the starting point for that, and I was a little bit mistaken. That Duke was the first GI Joe miniseries, but the whole Energon universe had started previously in a book called Void Rivals, and then some of the Transformers. The book called Transformers. So I've been trying to kind of get caught up on all the different streams there, but that's been pretty cool. And yeah, and then I thought, well, let's keep this train rolling, and I checked out the first trade of the recent Thundercats relaunch as well. And yeah, that was a lot of fun. I haven't really, I mean, there hasn't been any Thundercats thing since I watched the cartoon in the mid '80s, right? Whereas the Transformers and GI Joe have kind of come back in the movies and different things, different TV shows. But yeah, I hadn't really checked in on the Thundercats since probably 1987 or something like that. So that was fun to revisit. They're pretty neat characters. It's a pretty neat concept. It was kind of reminded just sort of why those were so popular and why they kind of hooked me in the first place. So that was a fun little jaunt down memory lane. So yeah, those are my lightning round picks. How about you?
Oh, that sounds very fun, nostalgic. I love it. And mine are we talked about on the What's News episode that the Ultimate Universe is scheduled to end later this year, which I am sad about because I've really loved Ultimate Spider-Man. So I'm still enjoying that. But I think knowing that they have an end game here, or at least for now. I mean, me and Christian and Will were talking about that. I think you were on that one too. I think but we were saying that they say that they have an endpoint for that, but I with how popular it is, I would not be surprised if it gets a reboot at some point because this universe has been so fascinating. Just seeing the different versions of these characters. Like I said, I've loved Ultimate Spider-Man, but now I think I am gonna go read the other ones just so I can really get caught up on the larger story. But yeah, but Ultimate Spider-Man, I'm still really enjoying. So at that, and then comic adjacent, I'm doing a rewatch of Peacemaker season 1 with season 2 coming out soon. They also have a new podcast out with James Gunn, Steve Agee, and Jennifer Holland, all from the show, recapping and talking about each episode and doing behind the scenes stuff. It's actually in the same feed as the DC Studios Showcase podcast that I've talked about on the show here before. So I'm a big fan of that one. I listen to every episode, and now I'm listening to the Peacemaker one. So yeah, Peacemaker, and it is so much fun to rewatch, and I'm very excited for season 2. So while not directly comic, again, very comic adjacent. And I'm very, if you can, I don't know if you can see my shirt here. It's the, I got this, my sister went to the Warner Brothers Studio Tour back in June when we were in Anaheim, which I went to that in 2022. It's amazing. But she got me this shirt that says 90 years of DC, and it's got like covers from different eras. Like for this one, it's just Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman. But yeah, so I've always been a big DC fan, but I'm on a especially big DC high right now with this universe, and I'm loving everything and about all the announcements forthcoming about DC Studios projects. So very excited for Peacemaker season 2.
Excellent. Yeah, I did that studio tour. I forget, that was probably 15 years ago now, but it
Yeah,
was pretty cool.
it's so cool, and they've got just so much. If you're a movie fan at all, or you like, it's got all the DC stuff, and then like Friends and everything. Anything
Yeah,
within the Warner Brothers sphere. And so yeah, I want to go back at some point. It's a fantastic tour there. But yeah,
yeah.
awesome.
And on the Ultimate line, I'm reminded that the last time Jonathan Hickman did a big revamp of a line of books for Marvel and had a definite endpoint in mind, they talked him out of it and kept it going because everybody else wanted to keep writing those books. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if something similar happened again.
I gotta say, I know they have the whole thing with the Maker coming, but yeah, the X-Men Krakoa era, like what was the original? Was it because that ran for years? Like, was it supposed to be only like mini series type thing?
It was. I mean, it wasn't necessarily mini series, but it was definitely the sword, 10 of Swords crossover. I think was supposed to be more of kind of a midpoint,
Mm,
and that wound up being more like the end of the first third of the books. But
yeah,
basically, Jonathan Hickman wrote some more after that, but pretty much uh, with the Inferno event, he kind of bowed out and said what he wanted to say. But the other folks had wanted to keep going. Jerry Duggan and Benjamin Percy and some of the other writers, Teenie Howard. I don't know exactly who all was behind the decision to keep going, but they had more ideas that they wanted to keep exploring in that setup. So, but it's not clear. I've never. There might be somewhere somebody knows what his original sort of plan was, what his original ending point was. It might be somewhere out on the internet. I've never gone digging to find that because I didn't want to. I was enjoying what I was getting, and I didn't want to spoil that with being like, "Oh, I would have rather had this other thing." So I'm content with what we did have. But yeah, that wasn't the original plan. And of course, it also didn't help that the whole thing launched and then COVID happened and all the, so that kind of messed with his architecting as well. But overall, I was a big fan of the Krakoa era, and I've been enjoying the Ultimate books as well. And if it does have a definite endpoint, that's great. But if it does keep going, I wouldn't be sad about that either.
I agree. I am of the mind of okay, if you have a story you want to tell and that's the end point, don't keep it going just because it's popular. But at the same time, I'm like, I want to see Ultimate Daredevil. There's I'm sure a ton of other characters I would love to see versions of. And so it's just I've really enjoyed this universe and the different takes on them, and I'm sure other writers and artists would be happy to come on board. So we'll see what happens. But as of right now, they have like it ending, I think, at the end of this year. So we'll see what
Yep.
happens. But yeah. Awesome.
Cool.
Excellent. Well, great picks, Andy. And let us move on then to our main books today. So I will start with mine. And this is My Adventures with Superman, Volume 1, written by Josie Campbell, art by Pablo M. Collar, and colors by Nick Flaherty, and then lettering by Lucas Gattoni. So, first off, this is a spin off of the animated series My Adventures with Superman. And if you want a really in depth look at that, me, Christian, and Will did. It was about was this a year ago? I think. Yeah, I think so. We did a episode on My Adventures with Superman and Batman: Caped Crusader. So we were looking at those two animated shows and how they differed and compared with like the animated series in the 90s and what they brought in from a modern perspective. And what I really love about my Adventures with Superman is it is a fresh take on the character, but it still has all of the key attributes of Superman. But it gives an anime feel to it, and as you can see from the cover of the comic here, what's really central to the show and to this comic is the trio of Superman, Lois, and Jimmy. All of them are written so well, and they have such a fun dynamic. This is early days of Superman when they're all three of them are interns at the Daily Planet, and they're going on all sorts of adventures, and just the dynamics between them is so entertaining. And so the comic is very much written for fans of the show. It's Josie Campbell is the showrunner of the series, so that makes it even better that because a lot of times they will do comic spin-offs of TV shows and whatnot, but it's really cool when they can get a creator from the show to write the comic as well because they already know the tone, the style, and same with the art here. The art very much matches the animation style of the show, and so the comic here is set in between seasons 1 and 2. It came out after season 2 was released, but it fills in some of the gaps there in between seasons. So, like at the end of season 1, it's Thanksgiving, and then it's 6 issues, and it takes place over Christmas time. And so, basic story is that this first Christmas that Clark can't be home in Smallville for, and so Lois is trying to make his Christmas special. But then, of course, he gets called into action as Superman. They introduce Amazo, who is this android that's initially introduced as a villain, but turns out to be more sympathetic, and so we get the story there unfold. We also have Amanda Waller and Task Force X show up here, and like Bloodsport is in this from the Suicide Squad, and you would think that would be like more dark and stuff here, but they are able to do a more fun kind of humorous tone in that interaction between him and Superman. So it's a very lighthearted, adventurous book. I mean, if you're coming off the highs of the Superman movie, then I think this is a great follow up to it. And again, I cannot recommend the series enough. It perfectly captures the tone of Superman. It has that anime style. I love the animation. I love the team dynamic between Superman / Clark, Lois, and Jimmy. And, this comic is very much a reflection of that. So same aesthetic, same tone. It's just not going to say it's earth shattering or anything, but it's a really fun adventure. And I hope they do. I don't know what the plans for this comic is because as of right now, they've just had these issues in this one volume. But I do hope that they will do one that's set, after season 2 and before season 3. Because I don't really know story details yet for season 3 or when it's set to premiere. I would think sometime next year, probably. They've also announced My Adventures with Green Lantern, which will be set in this same universe, and I'm very excited for that. But yeah, I would love to see another comic continuation of this one because, again, I just really love this universe. So, Andy, have you gotten to watch this show at all? I'm just curious.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I'm completely caught up with all the episodes, but I've definitely checked in on the show and enjoyed everything that I watched of it. Yeah, I would agree with everything you said. It's a lot of fun. It captures a lot of the elements of Superman in some new and interesting and different ways. And yeah, I enjoyed it, and I'm happy to see it continue. And I actually somehow missed that this comic existed, so it was cool to hear that there was such a thing, and that it's not just an adaptation of the episodes, but that it's original stories set within the same space. So that's pretty cool.
Exactly, because I'm glad you brought that up too, because it is disappointing when they just do a straight adaptation, or even like like I remember years ago when the J.J. Abrams Star Trek movie came out, there was like a comic set following that, with those characters, but it was just like adaptations of episodes from the original series with
Mm.
slight spins on it, and it's like I'd rather see a fresh story here, and I'm glad this comic does that. So yeah, if you like the show, it's very enjoyable. And even if you haven't watched the show, honestly, the comic might be a good jumping on point, and then you can go check out the show because I would say it doesn't necessarily ruin anything for you. But it's it's great if you have seen the show and you want to get more of it, and it fills that hunger as we await season 3. So yeah, I would. I mean, it's pretty much that. If you're a Superman fan, if you like the show, definitely check this one out. It's a nice self-contained story. And again, it fills in a nice gap there in between seasons 1 and 2. So highly recommend. Again, I love the writing, the art style. It's a very fun, light, adventurous story. And it's highly entertaining.
Awesome.
Sweet. So that is my first pick. But Andy, what is yours tonight?
Well, we'll stay in the DC greater universe, and my first pick is the Justice League Dark Tomorrow special that came out. I believe it was last week. It's sort of one of these, like my other book. It's one of these sort of one-off, wrapping up some things that came before and setting up for the next big crossover event kind of thing. And so I thought those would be some good issues to take a look at. I have I've dipped in and out of various different DC comics, so I'm not following everything that happens, and sometimes I'm a little behind because I'm reading things in the library or that way, or on Hoopla or something like that, as opposed to the Wednesday latest releases. So my knowledge of current DC events is kind of hit or miss, but this the time travel element of this intrigued me, and yeah, I really enjoyed this, despite the fact that I was I didn't know who some of these characters were. I had not read the We Are Yesterday event that it's coming out of, but this made me curious to go and check that out, and also made me curious to check out this Dark Tomorrow event that this is building to. So in addition, so that it is a special that kind of comes in between those two events. We Are Yesterday was some kind of time travel event of going through different time periods and picking up heroes that from those different places, apparently, because the team that we get in this book is, as you see on the cover, kind of folks from different parts of the timeline and different parts of maybe parallel time streams, right? So we've got Batman Beyond, and a version of the Huntress, and a version of Booster Gold, and a character, the sort of main character, or the narration character, is a character called Legend, who we don't know the identity of yet, but who is somebody clearly, based on hints in the narration, is somebody who we will recognize once that reveal happens, presumably in the Dark Tomorrow event. And yeah, so there are these what they call them Omega demons that are hunting down the time displaced characters and time travelers and so forth. And so by the time the book is open, some of them have already been killed, and so the rest of them are kind of trying to band together to figure out what's happening, protect each other, find other stragglers to protect, and so forth. And yeah, it was just kind of a lot of fun of just bouncing around in time to different time periods that are some of which I recognize better than others from DC history. And the part that I was enjoyed the most was just kind of the interactions between the characters, and then also they are traveling around in time in a wave rider. And as somebody who really enjoyed the Legends of Tomorrow TV show on the CW, I was excited to see that, and I'm hoping the fact that the characters is being called Legend, that whoever is in this Legend suit is perhaps somebody who featured into that Legends of Tomorrow cast. I'm not expecting that to be that version of that character, but somebody who was a mainstay of that show, which is part of why I got excited about following this going forward. So yeah, it was just I'm a sucker for time travel, and this was kind of a light and fun book. Mark Waid and Mark Guggenheim are both excellent writers, so I think it's their books that are crossing over going forward, and so that's why they're teaming up on this together. And yeah, like I said, was kind of clueless about some of the things, but it had enough fun that it did its job and got me curious about things instead of being off-putting and feeling like, oh, I'll never understand what's going on. It was clear enough what was going on, and I know enough about these different corners of the DC universe that I figure I'll be able to pick it up. Maybe a Wikipedia summary here and there might help, but it was very accessible even as is. So yeah, hopefully the Dark Tomorrow thing is just as much fun and has some cool time travel hijinks.
I'll definitely check this one out, and I'm glad you brought up like the Arrowverse connection here because Mark Guggenheim, being one of the writers on here, he was a key creator of the Arrowverse, and then
Sure.
Mark Waid's one of my favorite writers. So I love all these characters. I same as you. I mean, as big a DC fan as I am, like there's a lot of the continuity currently I don't really keep up with. I've talked about on the show. I love the Absolute Universe, and I've been keeping up with that. But as far as like main canon stuff, I dabble here and there, and I am interested in Matt Fraction's Batman coming up because I think that could be really interesting. And then I've been reading Superman Unlimited, which is set in the main canon, but mostly been reading the Absolute Universe. But it's something like this that's a one-off and has characters I really love. I mean, I love Batman Beyond, Booster Gold, Huntress. So this sounds like a lot of fun. But the creative team alone is making me interested here. So that because I was a big fan of the Arrowverse, particularly in college. That was what I would after like school and work. I was watching Arrow, Flash, Supergirl, Legends of Tomorrow. That was like my main TV staple during those years, and so always nostalgic for some of that, even if it's just references.
Cool.
So I will check this out. So excellent pick here, and I do hope they. I know Booster Gold is one that they announced as part of the James Gunn canon for the next 10 years or whatever. They haven't had any updates on that, but I think it'd be a really fun show. And my casting pick for that would be Glenn Powell. I think he could be really embody that character and make it really fun. So if they do still have that show in the works at some point, I think it could be really fun.
Yeah, I mean that does sound like great casting. I think the line to get Glenn Powell services forms somewhere in St. Louis probably by now. But yeah, I can't argue with that. That's a solid pick, and yeah, I think that there's a lot of potential for that kind of show. Yeah.
It would just be so funny is like if he does end up playing a big two character that it's not like Batman or Captain America famous, but if he played like Booster Gold, I think that would be hilarious. But
Yeah.
so we'll see. But yeah, excellent pick. I will definitely check this one out. So
Cool.
awesome. Well, on to our next one. Okay, so Saga, I'm very excited to talk about because I'm trying to think if I've ever really talked about it on this show before. Andy, are you a Saga reader?
I am a lapsed Saga reader.
Okay, yeah.
I fell off one of the times when they took kind of a longer hiatus.
So, like, was it? Like, do you remember if it was issue 54 one day? Because that was when, like, if I'm trying because I'm probably gonna have to like do a major spoiler here because there's a big thing that happens at the end of 54. That was when they after that issue is when they went on a 3-year hiatus. So it
Yeah,
may
that
be
was
that.
that was probably when it happened because
Okay,
that
okay.
sounds about like yeah.
Okay, because I probably will have to spoil that plot point just to kind of explain it. So if you
No
don't want to
worries.
hear major spoilers, like, and you're listening, may want to come back to this if you've never read Saga before. But for those who don't know, Saga is a book written by Brian K. Vaughan and illustrated by Fiona Staples. They introduced it back in 2012, and it is a sprawling space opera about a young girl named Hazel who is on the cover there, and she is the daughter of Alana and Marco. Alana and Marco come from warring civilizations that their planets have been at war for over a century, and they were each fighting for their respective sides. Alana comes from a world where they the creature, her species is dominated by her main feature is that they have wings, and then Marco is that his people have horns, and so that's kind of the easiest way to remember is like the horns and the wings. And then once this conflict starts, there are other factions and planets in the galaxy that pick sides, and then it turns into a big intergalactic conflict. And Hazel, being the daughter of the two of them, is considered, detestable by, because, these sides are not supposed to mate and reproduce. And so in the early days of the book, the three of them are hunted down. And, it turns into a big spiraling space opera. There's a bounty hunter called the Will. There is a leader from the robot kingdom, which you can see the kid on this cover, who is Hazel's later on adopted brother. He obviously comes from the robot kingdom, and they have these like TV heads on here. So Saga is basically, I mean, I hate to like just condense it into this, but the three biggest influences are Star Wars, Game of Thrones, and Romeo and Juliet, all kind of lopped into one. And and Brian K. Vaughan is very open about those as the big influences, but it also tackles modern socio-political themes. And if you've read any other Brian K. Vaughan before, like Ex Machina or Why the Last Man, you see a lot of those influences on him. And so and Saga was probably his most ambitious work, and it's made all the better by co-creator and artist Fiona Staples, who just has such a breadth of imagination in every page and every panel, and it's what has made this such an epic series from the beginning. So I followed it pretty much from the beginning. I was mainly reading just in trades early on, and then I started collecting issues as well. So I have them in issues and trades, because it is just one of those books that is so special, and that I've followed for and the really cool thing about having followed it for years is, with Hazel being the focal character, you are really growing up with her, and the book is also narrated by an older version of herself, so that's really the only thing about where the book is headed, because I know we're on like issue, I want to say like 70 something. They like Saga Volume 11 is not the most recent trade to come out. There's a Volume 12 I also have, but I haven't gotten to it yet. But yeah, there's like 70 something issues. I want to say that the Vaughn and Staples projected number is around like 100 something. And so maybe like I started this book when I was in college, so maybe by the time I am an old man, it'll be done. But like so it is quite a journey here. But that is the coolest thing, is Hazel being the point of view character and it being narrated by an older version of herself. That's one of the main hooks. So that's a long extended intro of what the book is for those who don't know. But yeah, Andy, you mentioned that there was a big hiatus. So back in issue 54, which was a really big climactic issue, spoiler alert here, at the end of that issue, in a big splash page, Marco is killed. And so a character we followed from the very beginning, we followed the three of them from the beginning, and the father is now dies at the hands of one of the other major characters in the book, the Will, who is the bounty hunter I mentioned earlier. And so that left readers just like mouths dropped, and we were all left. And not only that, but after that happened, the book took a hiatus for 3 years. So it's like, gut wrench us with a major character death, and then we had to wait 3 years after that to see where the story picked up from there. But so just a little bit about where the story picked up after that point is, once it finally came back, they skipped a few years, and now it centers on Alana, Hazel, and also Squire here, who is the son of Prince Robot. The three of them, and there's also some other characters, kind of trying to make a new life for themselves, proceeding on. And in this volume specifically, Alana takes a job at what is essentially an Amazon warehouse. Again, even in this very fantastical sci-fi universe, there's a lot of parallels to modern society, and that's very intentional. So, it basically, she's a single mom trying to survive and trying to make a new life for her kids. And oddly enough, in this volume, because we're very used to horrible stuff happening to these characters over and over again. I will just say in this particular story arc, Alana, Hazel, and Squire, by the end of it, get a nice break from everything. But of course, that is in typical Brian K. Vaughan fashion because you can't have it fully happy. This is juxtaposed with the major death of another character that I won't spoil here. So it's like that. The thing about this book is that yeah, for every moment of levity, it is juxtaposed with a moment of horror and tragedy. But so it is a sprawling journey. I mean, I love Saga. I followed it from the beginning, and it all is always a really breathtaking Shakespearean epic here, and no matter what the characters go through, you're always still compelled, and sometimes you do have to take a break. You're like, oh, I can't, like, particularly if you're like binge reading this book, you're gonna go through the ringer of emotions because you're gonna fall in love with these characters and then witness heartbreak and survival and all these things. But yeah, so as far as this volume specifically, yeah, I mean it's a very consistent book. It's hard to say rank really each volume because it's always been the same writer and artist. There's a lot of creative consistency, and also Phonographics does I think he does the lettering, I believe. And yeah. So yeah, and so it's always creative consistency. There's never really a dip in quality, in my opinion. It's they take their time with each issue, and it never feels like, oh, this has gone off the rails. It's there's sometimes like about the only thing with reading Saga is I did a big reread before the book came back. So after issue 54, and we had that long hiatus, I reread all the volumes before the start of when issue 55 came out. But even it's been now a minute since then. There are times where I'm picking it up a new volume and I'm like, I kind of forget where this character was or what they were doing last. So that's about the only. It would be nice if they had like Star Wars opening crawls at the beginning to kind of recap things, because there is so much story that happens in each issue and each volume. So that's about my only thing that I wish was here. But it's a great book. This volume is another great addition to it, and it's one of my favorite books to collect. Yet again, both in issues and in trades. And partly the reason I do that is that with the issues, they have nice letters from Brian K. Vaughan at the end and some bonus features and stuff like that. The trades, it's just the story, but they look great on my shelf. So and there's also big hardcovers you can collect as well. So yeah, I've been rambling here, but yeah, I love Saga, one of my favorites. So I think if you get back into it, yeah, there's a lot that's happened since issue 54, but and this volume also fills in some of the gaps that the last arc left out about what kind of happened in between Marco's death and then where it picks up in issue 55. So I did appreciate that as well.
Cool. Yeah, it was, kind of been looking back a little bit and also listening to what you're saying. And yeah, it was definitely 54 was where I stepped off. And, with everybody else at the time, obviously. And then, yeah, the shift to working from home full time for a couple of years changed some of my reading habits and time available for reading, and a lot of my habits, frankly. And so, yeah, when the book came back, it just didn't quite fit in anymore. But it's nice to know that actually I'm only about 28 issues behind, and so it's still plausible that I could catch up and finish what sounds like maybe another half of the story. So that's pretty cool. But yeah, I liked everything about it, or just about everything about it when I was reading it, and it has been kind of nagging on me every once in a while, like, oh yeah, that was a book. I should get back to that. I did enjoy that, but yeah. So thank you for the reminder and the encouragement to get back on that particular train.
No, for sure. And well, I remember when 54 ended, they initially said that they were going to take a 1-year hiatus. And then, I mean, yeah. I think COVID also played a factor in it, I'm sure. But
sure.
But still, they were, and there was probably I mean, Fiona Staples and Brian K. Vaughan are both very busy. So, I'm sure they had other commitments as well. And also, I would much rather them take their time on a book like that, because this book is so special. And like I said, it's very much a quality over quantity thing. I'm glad that they've never felt a need. Image has never felt a need to like franchise this book and do like spin-offs or anything. It's always been, it's just Saga. There's no, spin-offs of like books on the will or something like that. It's always been very consistent, and I appreciate that. So I'm kind of the opinion, take as much time as you need. I would rather the quality there be than it be rushed or anything. So I'm glad they never felt a need there. I also want to say, if you've never read Saga before, this is not one for the kiddos. So this is a very mature book, which like I said, Game of Thrones, one of his biggest influences. So I mean, there is sex, nudity, drugs, violence. I mean, all of that language. So it's very much a mature story, but I think one that it's revered by critics and by audiences, and if it's one of those where if people are like, oh, comics are for kids, no, or as I say, comics, people that think comics are exclusively for kids, this is the direct antithesis to that statement. This is something that could be studied in universities, and has just such a profound storytelling in it, and is very mature. So yeah. But so if you've never read Saga, I highly recommend. And if you are an avid reader, I would love to connect with you, and talk more about it.
Yeah, you're right. Definitely mature, and but yeah, I'm reminded at least they did come back after a hiatus, as opposed to Morning Glories. I'm looking in your direction,
Right.
But speaking of books that have been franchised with spin-offs out the wazoo, perhaps that's a segue to. Oh, I totally botched this slide. My apologies. I
Oh.
forgot to change the title there. That should say X-Men Age of Revelation 0, not Daredevil 595 to 600. But that is the correct, oddly enough, that is the correct creator credits. Age of X-Men Revelation, Age of Revelation X-Men is by Jed MacKay, Roberto Ramos, Victor Alazaba, and Edgar Delgado. And yeah, it is the surprise. It was a book that was kind of unannounced, just sort of showed up in comic book stores 2 Wednesdays ago, last Wednesday, I think it was 2 weeks ago. And previewing, promoting the upcoming Age of Revelation event. So we are 30 years past the legendary Age of Apocalypse crossover in the X-Men books, where for 4 months, all of the existing X-Men titles took a break, were retitled, renumbered from one, and we were set in an entirely different universe where Charles Xavier had died in before the events of X-Men #1 from 1963, and Apocalypse had become ascendant, hence Age of Apocalypse. And in an age when the internet was just barely a thing, or at least the World Wide Web rather was just barely a thing, and there were not a lot of comic book websites, there were not solicitations available to the public as readily 3 months in advance. It was uncertain what exactly was going on with these X-Men books. Was this the X-Men line going forward indefinitely? Was this just a one-off thing? How many months was it going to last? It was unclear. But it was a very successful event, very popular, and unsurprisingly, 4 months later, the X-Men were able to prevail and reset the timeline and bring things back to the normal 616. But along the way, we got to meet a bunch of alternate versions of our favorite characters and alternate relationships. Some of the heroes were now villains, and vice versa. That was the kind of the start of trying to make Sabretooth an anti-hero, right? Because he was on the X-Men in the Age of Apocalypse universe. And yeah, so to celebrate the 30th anniversary, the X-Men are doing something similar. They are pausing all of the ongoing titles and replacing them with titles by mostly the same creators, in the sense that many of the creators who are currently working on X-Men books will have a new book with a new title, but a similar cast in this other kind of timeline. And then we're also getting a whole bunch of other books as well that are not direct replacements of current titles, for a total of 16 books for, I think it's another 4-month event. I don't remember exactly, or I'm not sure if they said for sure how long it's going to last. But yeah, so something on the order of like 64 books to tell this story, which is a bit daunting. But yeah, so what is this book actually about? So the idea is that we are jumping ahead 10 years instead of jumping into a parallel time, a parallel present. We are jumping ahead 10 years into a possible future of the Marvel Universe in which Doug Ramsey, who became the heir to Apocalypse in a miniseries last year called Heir to Apocalypse, has kind of taken over the United States, or is in the process of taking over the United States. He's created a splinter country within the United States that is a mutant only, or at least mutant primary nation, and their territory is spreading. Their influence and territory is spreading as people join, and also as a virus is kind of spreading and terraforming the United States or North America. And so, yeah, that's kind of, so this book is kind of setting up some of the events that led to that and establishing that status quo, so filling in kind of what some of that 10 years looked like to set it up. So we've got an X-Men team on the cover here that is kind of led by Doug Ramsey, who goes by Revelation, which is where the name of the book comes from. And then there'll be all kinds of other teams, some of which are working with them, some of which are opposing them, some of which are, other heroes. There's going to be a Spider-Man book set in this universe. There's going to be like an anthology series by folks like Ryan North, dealing with the Fantastic Four and the Avengers and what all is going on with them in this universe. But it looks like the Jed MacKay books will be kind of the primary core story of the event. And yeah, as an X-Men junkie, as somebody who has, read a lot of X-Men for a long time, certainly I'm on board for this. I am a bit daunted by the number of books. And there are definitely some that intrigue me more than others. But, the story itself is pretty interesting. Just, what they've done with Doug Ramsey. They basically, Apocalypse gave him an upgrade, and his facility with languages now gives him the ability to, by telling people what to do, kind of make them do what he wants. Not dissimilar to, what is her name? Is it number 2 from Umbrella Academy? Who,
Yeah,
or maybe number 3. I think she's number 3.
I'm trying to I read the first volume of Umbrella Academy, and then I've seen some of the shows, so I don't remember the numbers off the top of my head, like which one. But I know like the character you're thinking of.
Yeah. Who I heard a rumor that you whatever and
yeah.
So yeah, it's that kind of thing of just by telling his facility with language is so powerful that it sort of creates ideas in people's heads that they can't ignore or can't disobey. And so, in this book, we kind of see the first moment of, because he doesn't want to use that power, and he doesn't want to use that power. It's too much power. He's not worthy of it, or nobody should have much power. And then he reaches a moment where he's like, nope. He kind of slips and he uses it, and then it kind of snowballs from there. And that's kind of the inciting incident for how this all begins. And yeah, so I thought that was an interesting, kind of evolution of his power, an interesting take on his power. So I'll be curious to see what they do with that character. There's also Bay the Blood Moon, his wife from that Ten of Swords crossover from the Krakoa era, who is an intriguing character to set him up with, because she also has a language-related power, but one that means that she can't always communicate with him. So that's an intriguing situation for somebody who understands all languages, is to be married to somebody who he doesn't always understand. And so, but they have, the Krakoa era didn't really have a whole lot to say about that relationship. So I'm curious to see if this will develop that further. And yeah, I'm excited and curious to see where this goes, but yeah, I probably won't be following every last tie-in title, at least not as they come out. That some of those might have to wait to catch up on some other format. But yeah, the book did a pretty good job of setting things up and kind of whetting our appetites, and hopefully it lives up to the promise that it suggests. But I do remember, the Age of Apocalypse, for much as I enjoyed it at the time, was also kind of a point at which it was jumping off point, just because there were so many books involved in that and so and because it was unclear what was happening in the future, I found myself kind of drifting away for a little while at that point. So they are definitely playing with fire here. That this many crossover titles and tie-ins and so forth could bring people in because there's something for everybody, or it could turn people off because they feel like if I'm not reading them all, I'm missing something, and who can possibly read 16 books a month just about the X-Men?
Hopefully they do it in the kind of vein of like, yeah, you can kind of pick and choose. Because I saw you and Will texting about that of like, oh, are we gonna have to pick up every one of these? Because I know like you and him especially are major X-Men fans. But hey, Joshua also like picked up an X-Men book for one of the last episodes of Comic Book Catch Up, and so yeah, who knows if he'll jump in on one of these. We'll see.
Yeah, I mean certainly the books that Jed MacKay is writing, which I think are amazing X-Men, and then the obviously titled Book of Revelation, X-Men Book of Revelation, are his two books. And so I think he's kind of the core architect of this event. So those would be the ones to follow if you only want to get the bare minimum what's going on here. But yeah, there's a whole bunch of other things. Like I said, there's a Cloak and Dagger tie-in book. There's a long shot, or a book called Long Shots by Hickman and Jerry Duggan. There's a Deadpool tie-in. So there is in theory something for just about everybody who's a Marvel fan of some persuasion. But yeah, it is quite a lot in total.
Yeah, maybe there is someone out there who can read every single one, but I don't know. I also do not have that kind of time. But yeah, I mean, Jed MacKay, I think is one of the best writers today. I love his stuff. So yeah, maybe I will check this one out. See kind of like maybe which ones I'm interested in after that.
Yeah, there'll be another Age of X-Men Revelation Overture kind of setup book to start everything off. So that might be a place to dip your toe in and see if it's for you.
Nice. Sounds good. I like the cover too. That's cool. But
yeah. I mean, they've got some good artists working on these X books these days. So
very cool. Awesome. Well, is that and it's funny too that the Daredevil title's there because I think that was one on an episode we did like together a few months ago. So
that's how that got there. Is I recycled the slides so that I don't have to redesign everything every time. But yeah, sorry about that.
Oh, no worries. I mean, I didn't catch it either, so it's it's all good. But awesome. This was great. I love these picks today. This was a lot of fun. Awesome. Yeah. Well, Andy, is there either one of the books you talked about today or something else that you want to recommend for listeners, viewers out there?
Based on what I saw on the cartoon show, I would recommend of all these books, the My Adventures of Superman. I think that if you just need some joy and some wholesomeness in your life. And who doesn't these days, or any day, right? Pick up that book, as I hope to do in the near future.
Absolutely. And then if you want some tragedy and a ring of emotions, I would recommend Saga. But yeah, that's why I wanted to go both ends today. Go through a very heavy, like emotional whirlwind of a book, but also critically acclaimed, and then a nice, like you said, joyful, wholesome one. So that was kind of my goal today. So whatever you're in the mood for, but awesome. Awesome, Andy. Well, this was great as always. And for our listeners out there, thank you again so much. And again, please like, rate, subscribe, review. We always appreciate your support here. And tune in for more episodes on our YouTube channel here. And remember, I'm going to use this sign off now because we came up with this one on the Super Juratastic episode the other day. I'm going to use this as, remember, we are all punk rockers. Be fantastic to each other.